Hello, everyone. X-Wall Kill Bethelite here. And after this, you guys aren't going to be able to say ever that, Marcus doesn't tell us anything personal. But we'll continue with this dating out after Watchtower series. And let's move on to, I changed my look, right? This is a different workplace. I changed my look. I go out, buy some new outfits, and I wasn't doing it with the concept of I'm trying to impress a girl or anything like that. I just wanted to try a new style. So I go to a store, and one of the people in the store is helping me. And I'm like, I'm just looking for some nice outfits. And he's like, well, why don't you try this? And he starts grabbing clothes, taking them to the table and putting them together. Hey, why don't you try this with this? And hey, why not try it with these shoes, And then I sit back and I look at it and I'm like, that is a nice outfit. You know what I mean? So I thought, why not try it? So I went ahead and he put a couple things together where the belt matched, the pants matched, the shirt matched, and the shoes matched even that. And so I got the outfit, and I even got a new haircut. I was just going for a new look for myself. And so I go to work the next day, and I mean, people that would ordinarily not pay me any attention, I wasn't paying them any attention either. It was just a normal day at work, were like watching me as I walked past, and it sounded like they were talking about me as I left, and flirting and all kinds of things. And one girl was flirting with me and invited me to her church and all kinds of things. And so I end up getting her phone number, and we start talking. We start talking over the phone. It got to the point where we're talking over the phone every day. And we would go, she would invite me to gatherings. We'd have fun. And a couple of things that blew my mind. This is where we get to. We get to this part in the video where for a former Jehovah's Witness, this blew his mind. So we get to a point where, yeah, we've been talking over the phone. Yeah, we've been going to various gatherings. But now we get to where things get a little bit more forward, where me and her are in the car, and she's starting to share more personal information about herself. And she asks me, how many sexual partners do I have, and who all are they? Because she doesn't want to start a relationship with someone who's one of their sexual partners is someone she knows or a friend of hers. Or if they are, she said she just needs to know who they all are. And I'm just sitting here trying to pretend like, hey, I've heard this before. This is no big deal. So we list off all our sexual partners now. I was single, and for some people, single means they got 5 sexual partners and they're just not in a committed relationship. But for me, single was, I was single. So we go and we have that discussion where she almost doesn't believe me when I say I'm not sleeping with anybody at the moment, dating here and there, but just ongoing sleeping with someone at the moment, no. And from there, we start to see each other more, and it started to get to the point where we couldn't even hide it at work. People at work were starting to notice, like, you guys dating? You know what I mean? So, let me just give you an example. There'd be days where she would work and I wasn't working. And sometimes I would go and pick her up lunch. I would go pick up lunch, bring it back to work, and, you know, she would see me jump up, give me a hug and whatnot. And I guess do it without thinking, because then after she did it, she turned around and looked around and yep, all her workmates, she worked like more in an office type area. Let's just say she had a better job than I did. And she worked more in an office type area. And work that I did was a little bit more hands-on. So yeah, it started to become a little bit more obvious. Like people were asking me, what is your work schedule? Why are you here today? I saw you bring such and such lunch, but why are you here today? Trying to figure out what was going on. So yeah, I think it was pretty much out in the open that we were, you know, not committed, but getting to know each other in that way. And let's go over some of her things about her. She lived, I told you the other girl in the last video lived in a house. She wasn't in the ghetto or hood or anything that reflected how she acted. Now this girl lived in a really nice house. She lived in a really nice house. Her house was nicer than mine. She lived in an area of Dayton where you have to go out your way to get to the ghetto, get to the hood. Most places aren't that far from the hood, or for some places just toe up. She lived in a nice area. I was a little bit intimidated when I went in there and met her fam for the first time, her brother and people like that. So she lived in a really nice area. Dad had a really good job. I don't know if her mother worked or not. Yeah. And she was very well educated. I've mentioned before, she had a job better than mine. Yeah, so she was very well educated. And we continued to date. There were situations where, you know, she would call me. She would be at a club. It'd be 2:00 in the morning and she's calling me, and I could tell she is drunk out of her mind because she can barely text. So, you know, there's times like that where she would call me and where are you? And at 2:00 in the morning, I'm driving down to this club, and it be the wildest club in freaking Dayton. One of them places where cops are out there with AKs and whatnot. I go down there to make sure she gets to her car, or if she's tow up from the flow up, then she gets back home safely. It was that type of a relationship where we were not committed, but I cared enough about her to, you know, bring her lunch at work, check up on her. She'd call me. She trusted me enough to where if she was that drunk, she'd call me. And oftentimes I'd go, you know, do you need me to come down there? Type of a situation. Also, you know, a lot of times, you know, we would go, when she would go to stores and things like that, I would go with her. So it was one of those things where we were starting to see each other a little bit more often, a little bit more regularly, and be a little bit more open. And so she wanted to have dinner with me because she had something she wanted to tell me. And I'm thinking, oh my, what is this? So we meet up at a restaurant, and I can just tell something is weighing her down, and she wants to tell me. And so, come on now, I'm coming out of Watchtower. It was blowing me away when she was talking about, well, let's talk about sexual partners. I got these 4. How many do you have? And who are they? So we make sure we're not intermixing nothing that shouldn't be intermixed. That was blowing me away. Let alone, okay, now we're at this restaurant and I don't know what this is about to be. How am I, based off what she's told me so far, how am I supposed to know what this is about to be? So we're sitting there over our food and she's just getting ready to tell me, and I'm looking at her and I can tell it ain't nothing small. So she tells me, keep in mind, we weren't committed, but here's something that I had to learn coming out of Watchtower is that you don't go all out like that. See, I'm going to clubs to go pick her up, potentially dangerous situations because this guy and that guy is after her because they know she's drunk, and I'm going to intervene, and we're not even in a committed relationship. Like, and I'm coming to her job to bring her lunch and things like that, and we're not even in a committed relationship. What you got to understand is for people coming out of Watchtower, dating in a committed relationship is somewhat the same thing. For Watchtower, if you're dating someone, and especially it starts to become known that you're dating them, y'all are darn near engaged. People expect things to go to marriage unless something drastically goes wrong. Huge difference from dating outside of Watchtower. If you're dating somebody outside of Watchtower and y'all are not in a committed relationship, there are no rules. No rules. In Watchtower, if you so much as sit next to a sister at the hall that you're dating, y'all basically done made the proclamation that y'all are going to at some point in the future get married. If it don't work, gossip is going to fly through multiple congregations as to why it didn't work, because somebody must have did something wrong. So that explains why. Here's the girl I'm just getting to know. I'm talking. We see each other often. We're not committed, though. We're not full-blown boyfriend, girlfriend. And yet and still, I'm bringing her food to her job, watching out for her safety and whatnot, you know, as far as being protective and things like that. Putting myself at risk doing that. One of the reasons for somebody, there was some other situation that she had with somebody, and it was a guy, and she wanted to go look for him. And guess who she calls to go with her while she does that? Me. So I'm in the car while she's looking for somebody that did something to her. If you're coming out of Watchtower, don't do this and y'all aren't committed. Don't be like Marcus. Don't do this and y'all aren't committed, because being not being in a serious relationship outside of Watchtower, basically, let's just put it this way. A relationship with the girl is not necessarily serious outside of Watchtower. Inside, any darn relationship with a girl is freaking serious. You just call her too often and y'all are darn near dating, even if y'all don't even like each other. So, yeah, doing all that. So now let's fast forward. We're at the restaurant here, right? So she tells me that there is some guy, and I'm just trying to, eat my food without it falling back in the plate. There is some guy that she had been in a relationship with, and she is still technically either seeing or talking to. And this is a guy who, and now we get into the stereotypical situation. This is the stereotypical situation. This is a guy who was either in jail at the time or was in and out of jail. So I'm talking to a woman. This is stereotypical. A lot of people probably been in this situation. You're dating a woman, you're talking to a woman, and she finally, before it gets way too serious, she finally stops it and says, I'm technically with a guy who's locked up. So yeah, we had that discussion. And I'm just sitting here still eating my food thinking, okay, I'm glad you told me this. But what I'm not realizing is what she's saying is This is who she's picking for the future from now on. The reason she's telling me this is not just so that I know what had been going on. She's telling me this because the guy who's locked up in jail, she's picking that guy over a guy who's not locked up in jail and who is currently protecting her and currently there for her when she wants to talk and currently doing things. See, this guy couldn't do all those things because he was locked up in prison. I don't know the guy at all. I'm not going to say the guy wasn't. I don't know him. I don't know him at all. So I'm not going to judge him because I don't know him. I'm just saying she wasn't calling him when guys were reaching and grabbing her butt and stuff like that at these clubs. She was calling me. I was the one driving out there. So now we're at a restaurant and she's telling me, yeah, this guy most likely is probably getting out at some point. And she's telling me that's going to be the guy. So that's the part that it took a while to sink in because it was so illogical. Coming from Watchtower, it was the most illogical. I'd never seen anything like that before. It was so illogical. It made no sense at all from any standpoint possible. It made no sense. And after that lunch, I'm thinking, man, I'm done doing this stuff. I'm not. She needs to call whoever this guy is the next time she's after some guy or the next time some guy's touching her at a club. You mean to tell me I've been doing all of this and yeah, we're going with the guy coming out of prison. And keep in mind, I'm not judging the guy because I don't know why he got locked up. I don't know him at all. I'm judging the decision making here because the course of getting locked up left her in a vulnerable situation where anything could have happened to her, but she's not seeing it that way. She's not saying that's probably not good relationship material in the sense that that leaves you out here when he's locked up. You just out here. Anything could happen to you. So we talked more after that because we done built a friendship by this point. So I don't think I was still bringing food and whatnot to her job. And if I got a call at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because she's leaving the club, drunk and whatnot, I would not pick up the phone. Matter of fact, I started putting my phone on silent because I'm not waking up at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't think she fully realized the impact. I'm thinking she's thinking, okay, well, I'm going to grab this guy. I don't know why. I don't know him. Maybe it was sexual. I don't know him. I'm going to grab this guy while still holding on to this guy so that I can call him at 2 and 3 in the morning when I'm coming out of clubs and whatnot. He can still bring me lunch at work and do all this stuff. I'm just going to have him both. No, that wasn't the case. So if I got a call at 3 o'clock in the morning because she's coming out the club, I'm not picking that up. I'm going back to sleep. I ain't going out there. Call whoever the guy is. You know, that's fine. Date whoever you want to, but call him. But we were still somewhat we're still friends. She was a little upset that I wasn't picking up the phone at 2 or 3 in the morning and doing all the stuff that I was doing before. But we're still friends. If we're going shopping or whatnot, we'd still do that. And while we were doing that, keep in mind, people open up sometimes. They'll open up and they'll just tell me things. And we had known each other long enough that she started to open up that one of the reasons why her and the guy that she was with were having issues prior to him getting locked up was because he had put his hands on her or he'd been physical. They got into some kind of argument at his place, and he was physical with her, and it was just still blowing my mind. It was blowing my mind. Me and her had argued before, but it was nowhere near physical. It wasn't even in the stratosphere of physical. So I'm judging it from a logical perspective. You know what I mean? I'm judging it from a logical perspective. And I'm not understanding her decision making until you start to really evaluate her. I remember when I would take her home from a date, or I'd pick her up from a date. When I'd pick her up for a date, I would get out and open her door. And she would say, I can open my own door. And also when I would drop her off, oftentimes I would walk her to her house, walk her to the front door, make sure she got there safe. I can get myself to the door. I mean, it was one of those things where she just was not used to that type of behavior. And honestly, this is my opinion. I'm not a psychotherapist. This is my opinion. It is low self-esteem. It's low self-esteem. There's no such thing for somebody that has low self-esteem. There's no such thing. And what I do when I'm looking at the camera is I'm looking at the time. There's no such thing as this is below me. And there's no such thing as I demand this type of treatment. So there's a lot of people that have low self-esteem. There's no guy below them. It don't matter if he's got 7 kids. They'll still date him. It doesn't matter if he's still cheating with some woman in the past. They'll still date him and marry him. It doesn't matter if he's been in and out of prison and typically fresh out of and don't have a job yet or anything like that. They'll still date. Like that basically to me states I have low self-esteem and there's nothing that I feel like I'm better than. Because I know people who will tell me, yeah, my boyfriend cheated on me with such and such a girl, and they just stay right there. I can't judge everybody's situation, but for her, when she did not like being treated a certain way, somebody opening doors for her, walking her to doors and things like that. And I think it's because she wasn't used to that level of treatment. And she lives in this huge house. Her dad was he just looked like he had all kinds of money. She had a nice car. She'd been to college. She had a good job. She had everything but a level of self-esteem to say there's a such thing as requirements beyond sex. Outside of sex, she had no requirements. The guy could be physical with her. She still have a relationship with him. The guy could be an alcoholic. She still have a relationship. There was no such thing as here's the list of requirements. And if you don't meet all these things, you're not it. For a lot of girls like that I've talked to, because it would take forever for me to have a video about every single woman that I have ever dated. A lot of the women like that I've talked to, after you check off sexual, what do you call it? Requirement. After a guy if he meets the sexual requirement, there's no other requirement. He could be an active criminal. He could be currently locked up. He could be beating her. He could be molesting her kid. He could be there's no such thing as this disqualifies him. The only thing that would disqualify him if he didn't meet the sexual look, if he didn't turn her on sexually, yeah, then no, she probably don't have nothing to do with him. But as long as the sexual Just sex is the only requirement. Long as the sex part is met, darn near anybody qualifies. And then another problem with that, with somebody that has that low self-esteem, is they don't expect a certain level of treatment. They're not used to a certain level of treatment, and they're used to a dating pool of people who aren't upstanding members of society, and they become used to it. Used to it means comfortable with it. And if people act differently, they're not comfortable with that. There's some people who, I've talked to some women who, well, yeah, they're been locked up, been this, been that, but these are things I'm used to, and I feel like I can control that. I feel like I can navigate in an environment that I'm used to. But if I date a guy who ain't never been locked up, who has a good job, been to college, has his affairs in orders, is not a cheater, yada, yada, yada. If I go outside of this environment, well, this guy might be Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, I have heard the craziest things. This guy might be a serial murderer. It's a possibility. You know, it is a possibility, but it's not as high of a possibility that your family is not going to be secure. It's not as high if your dating pool is primarily people who are lower standing members of society. In Texas, it's not just a matter of, you got a lot of interracial dating in Texas. And it's not just a matter of, okay, they think dating a white guy is just better. No, it'll be the most redneck, tobacco chewing, spitting every 3 seconds, can't finish a sentence person in the world. Like, it'll be a redneck. There's literally no such thing as this disqualifies this guy. Outside of sexual, there's nothing that disqualifies a guy. So I've talked to women like that it's a shame. The self-esteem is so low that they lowered themselves to deal with people who, they're here. I can understand if she was on the same level as the guy and they both been locked up. No, she's here. She's accomplished this much. She's got a job. She's been educated. She's gone to school and everything else. But she's dating somebody that's way down here. Hadn't accomplished those things. Because you guys let me know what you think. And it's not just a black thing. There are white women who are waiting for guys who are locked up, and they've got a whole dating pool of people who have a better record, but no, they're waiting for guys that are locked up. Probably their baby's children's father. There's Mexican, Latin women. There's black, definitely black. I don't know if there's any Asian. I've never seen an Asian woman traditionally waiting for a guy that's locked up. There probably are some. I don't know everything. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. 937-789-4029. Let me check the time again. One little tidbit. If you're a woman trying to date a guy who's a Jehovah's Witness, you got an uphill battle. If you're a guy dating a woman who's a Jehovah's Witness, you got a lot to deal with, but oftentimes you're still going to be able to marry her because the cult doesn't have anything else to offer her. She's not going to sometimes pass up on marriage when there ain't nobody there to marry her, and she can't pursue titles. There's nothing to prevent a woman sometimes who's a Jehovah's Witness from marrying somebody who is outside versus a guy who is a Jehovah's Witness, and he's got possible Bethel, he's got positions he's got to worry about losing if he's dating you. It is uphill sometimes if you're dating a guy who's a Jehovah's Witness. Just wanted to throw that in there because of some situations that I found out about later. But X-Wall Kill Bethelite, 937-789-4029. We'll discuss it. Signing out.